Okay, so get this. We're diving deep into glutathione and Parkinson's disease.
Oh, wow.
And, you actually sent over some fascinating research on this, a meta-analysis, looking at its potential as a treatment. And,
Right.
meta-analyses, they're really cool because they combine data from multiple studies.
Right.
So it gives us a bigger, clearer picture. It's like getting the SparkNotes version of years of research.
Exactly.
So the big question is, could this naturally occurring antioxidant really be a key to improving motor function in Parkinson's patients?
Well, it's definitely an area with a lot of potential. And what I find really interesting about this particular meta-analysis is how deep they went.
Hmm.
They pulled from all the major databases, PubMed, Cochrane Library, Web
Yeah.
of Science.
Yeah, the heavy hitters.
Yeah, they really did their homework. And they landed on 7 randomized controlled trials
Okay.
with a total of 450 participants.
Wow. That's a pretty
Yeah, that's a pretty solid sample size.
that's a pretty solid group of people to draw conclusions from.
Definitely gives their findings a lot more weight.
Okay, so they did their homework. We've got a decent group of people to draw conclusions from. But let's cut to the chase. Did they find anything promising?
They did. The study showed that glutathione treatment led to a statistically significant improvement in motor scores. And they used the UPDRS-3 scale for
Yeah.
this,
Okay.
which focuses specifically on things like tremors, rigidity, and slowness of movement.
Mhm.
Those really challenging motor symptoms that are kind of hallmarks of Parkinson's.
So people taking glutathione were actually seeing improvements in these specific areas. That's got to be encouraging for patients.
It is, although it's important to note that the improvement was mild.
Okay.
But, even a mild improvement, considering how difficult these symptoms are to manage, it's still a step in the right direction.
That makes sense. Now, I know that the UPDRS third is all about motor function, but Parkinson's affects so much more than just movement, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Did the study look at any other areas like mood or sleep or cognitive function?
Yeah, they did. They looked at both UPDRS-I, which covers those non-motor aspects of daily living, and UPDRS-2, which looks at how motor symptoms impact daily tasks like getting dressed or eating.
And what did they find there?
Unfortunately, no statistically significant improvements in either of those areas.
Okay.
So it seems like glutathione's potential benefits might be limited to motor function, at least based on this research.
Okay, so it's not a cure-all, but any progress on those motor symptoms is a big deal. Of course, the big question with any potential treatment is safety. Did this study raise any red flags?
Actually, it's quite reassuring on that front.
Okay.
The meta-analysis found no statistically significant difference in side effects between those receiving glutathione and the control group.
Wait, so people taking glutathione weren't experiencing any more side effects than those who weren't? That's pretty remarkable, especially when you think about the side effects of some of the medications currently used to treat Parkinson's.
It is, and this definitely points to glutathione being a potentially safe treatment option,
Yeah.
which is huge when you're considering long-term use.
This is where things get really interesting. You mentioned earlier that the study included 7 different trials.
Right.
Were there any differences in the way glutathione was administered across those trials? Like, did some use higher doses than others?
They did, and that's where this deep dive takes an even more fascinating turn. The researchers actually dug deeper and did what's called a subgroup analysis,
Mm-hmm.
where they broke down the data by dosage, and what they found is that the dosage of glutathione might actually play a role in how effective it is at improving those motor scores, specifically UPDRS-3.
Hold on. So taking more glutathione might lead to better results.
That's what the data suggest, although we need to be cautious about drawing any firm conclusions. But this finding opens up a whole new set of questions about how dosage impacts effectiveness and whether there's a sweet spot that maximizes benefits while minimizing any potential risks.
Now that you mentioned potential risks, it makes me wonder, even though this meta-analysis didn't flag any significant side effects, is it possible that longer-term use of glutathione could lead to issues down the line? Could there be interactions with other medications or even just unknown effects that haven't been studied yet?
That's a really important point. While the study is encouraging from a safety perspective, it's essential to remember that long-term studies are crucial for understanding the full safety profile of any potential treatment. Just because something is naturally occurring in our bodies doesn't automatically mean it's completely risk-free, especially at higher doses.
So before we were talking about how the dosage of glutathione might play a role in its effectiveness, what were the specific dosages they compared in the study?
Yeah, so the researchers, they focused on 2 dosages, 300 milligrams and 600 milligrams.
Okay. And did the higher dose actually show a more significant impact on motor function?
Well, the subgroup analysis kind of hinted that the 600 milligram dose might be more effective in improving those UPDRS-3 scores, which, as we discussed, relate to those core motor symptoms like tremors and rigidity. It's not definitive proof,
Right.
but it definitely raises some interesting questions about how our bodies process glutathione and whether there's a threshold for its therapeutic effects.
It makes you wonder if maybe there's a sort of tipping point where below a certain dosage, glutathione isn't quite able to exert its full effect. It's like trying to bake a cake with only half the required sugar. It might still be a cake,
Right.
but it's not going to be as sweet or as satisfying.
I like that analogy. That's a great way to think about it. And it really underscores the importance of figuring out that sweet spot dosage. The one that provides the greatest benefit with the least risk of side effects.
Which brings me to another thought. If glutathione does turn out to be a viable treatment option for Parkinson's, wouldn't this dosage piece have huge implications for personalized medicine? I mean, what works for one person might not work for another, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite possible that individual factors like genetics, metabolism, or even the severity of symptoms could influence the optimal dosage of glutathione. And this is where the concept of personalized medicine really comes into play, tailoring treatments to each individual's unique needs and characteristics.
So instead of a one-size-fits-all approach,
Right.
it's about figuring out the precise dosage that works best for each patient. It's like
Mm.
getting a custom-tailored suit instead of buying one off the rack. You're much more likely to get a perfect fit.
Exactly. And that's the exciting potential of personalized medicine, moving away from generic treatments and towards more targeted and effective interventions.
This whole dosage question makes me think about another issue we touched on earlier, the need for long-term studies, even though this meta-analysis didn't find any significant side effects. Is it possible that those could emerge with prolonged use, especially at higher doses? Could there be cumulative effects that we just haven't observed yet?
That's a really insightful point.
Mhm.
We can't just assume that because something seems safe in the short term,
Mhm.
that it will remain. So over time, it's like with any substance, the effects can vary depending on the dose and the duration of exposure.
So we really need those long-term studies to give us a clearer picture of both the effectiveness and the safety of glutathione, especially at different dosages. It's not just about whether it works, but how it works long-term and whether there are any hidden risks.
Precisely.
Hmm.
And those long-term studies need to be carefully designed to account for individual variations and potential interactions with other medications or lifestyle factors. It's complex research, but it's essential for making informed decisions about treatment options.
It strikes me that we've been talking about glutathione as a potential treatment for Parkinson's, but we haven't really delved into why it might be beneficial. What's the underlying mechanism at play here? What is it about glutathione that seems to have a positive effect on those motor symptoms?
That's a fantastic question. And it gets to the heart of how scientific discoveries often unfold.
Hmm.
We sometimes observe a positive effect without fully understanding the reasons behind it.
Right.
In the case of glutathione, we know it's a powerful antioxidant, which means it helps protect cells from damage caused by harmful molecules called free radicals.
So is the idea that maybe those free radicals are somehow involved in the development or progression of Parkinson's and that glutathione is able to neutralize them, protecting the brain cells?
That's one of the leading theories.
No.
There's evidence to suggest that oxidative stress, an imbalance between free radicals and antioxidants, plays a role in Parkinson's disease.
Okay.
So it's possible that glutathione, by reducing oxidative stress, could help slow down the progression of the disease or even improve some of the symptoms.
That makes sense. It's like those free radicals are little gremlins wreaking havoc in the brain, and
Mm,
glutathione is like a superhero swooping in to save the day.
that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And it highlights why understanding these underlying mechanisms is so crucial. It allows us to develop more targeted treatments that address the root cause of the problem, not just the symptoms.
So while we're still piecing together the puzzle of how glutathione works in the context of Parkinson's, the fact that we're seeing these positive effects even without fully understanding the why is pretty remarkable, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's a testament to the power of scientific inquiry
Mm.
and the importance of staying open to new possibilities, even if we don't have all the answers yet. These findings give us hope and a direction for future research.
Okay, so we've established that glutathione shows promise, but more research, especially long-term studies, is needed to confirm its effectiveness, determine optimal dosages, and fully understand the underlying mechanisms. What other areas do you think are ripe for exploration when it comes to glutathione and Parkinson's?
Well, one area I find particularly intriguing is the potential for combining glutathione with other therapies. Could there be synergistic effects that enhance its benefits, or even address some of the non-motor symptoms that it hasn't shown much impact on.
So instead of thinking of glutathione as a standalone treatment, maybe it's more like a piece of a larger puzzle.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It might be that glutathione works best as part of a multifaceted approach working in concert with other therapies to provide a more comprehensive and effective treatment strategy.
That makes a lot of sense. It's rare that any single treatment is a magic bullet, especially for a complex disease like Parkinson's. It's more about finding the right combination of therapies that work together to manage symptoms and improve quality of life.
And that's where the real innovation lies, in exploring these different combinations and tailoring them to individual needs. It's an exciting frontier in Parkinson's research, and glutathione could very well be a key player in this evolving landscape of treatment options.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We went from the initial promise of glutathione to the complexities of dosage and long-term effects, and even the potential for, combination therapies. It's been a real roller coaster ride. What stands out to you as the biggest aha moment from all of this?
Well, I think for me, it's the realization that we're really just scratching the surface of what we know about glutathione and its potential in Parkinson's.
Mm-hmm.
This meta-analysis gives us some clues,
Right.
but there are so many unanswered questions, so many avenues left to explore.
Yeah, it's like we've opened this door and there's this whole vast landscape stretching out before us. It makes me think of those old maps where they draw sea monsters and write, "Here be dragons on uncharted territories."
Yes.
We're venturing into the unknown and who knows what we might find.
And that's the beauty of scientific discovery, isn't it? It's about embracing that uncertainty, that sense of adventure.
Yeah.
We might not have all the answers yet,
Right.
but each new piece of research, each unexpected finding, brings us one step closer to understanding this complex disease and finding better ways to treat it.
Speaking of unanswered questions, is there anything specific about glutathione and Parkinson's that you're particularly curious about? What mysteries would you love to see solved in future research?
One thing that really intrigues me is the individual variability in response to glutathione.
Yeah.
Why does it seem to work well for some people and not so much for others?
Yeah.
Is it purely a matter of dosage, or are there other factors at play like genetics or differences in how our bodies metabolize glutathione?
Right.
Unraveling those mysteries could be game-changing for personalized treatment approaches.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to solve this giant jigsaw puzzle and we have a few pieces that fit together, but there's still these huge gaps. And those gaps represent the questions that will drive future research, the potential breakthroughs that could make a real difference in the lives of people living with Parkinson's.
Exactly. And it's not just about researchers and labs. It's about individuals living with Parkinson's and their families, advocating for more research, participating in clinical trials, and staying informed about emerging treatments. Everyone has a role to play in this journey to discovery.
I love that perspective. It's a collaborative effort, a collective quest for knowledge and solutions, and this deep dive with your expertise and the research that you helped us unpack has given us this really valuable roadmap, highlighting those key landmarks and the paths that future research might take.
It's been a privilege to share this journey with you, and to our listener, remember, this deep dive is just a starting point. We encourage you to keep asking questions, keep exploring, and stay engaged in the quest for knowledge. The answers are out there waiting to be discovered.
Beautifully said. And on that note of curiosity and exploration, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of glutathione and Parkinson's.